We've got a fun episode on deck. We get into a little trivia at the end, so stick around for that. But first, we get into which guys are going to have a make it or break it season. Which guys are on the fringe? Where are the bubble positions at? We break it all down in today's episode.
I got 34 locks on the team, 3 locks here with the A team on the podcast today. We are presented by PJ's Coffee, the best coffee in all of the land. Make sure you go and check them out. We are going to be doing a show from there at the end of the week. So support them because they support us. And we are also coming to you from the Better Call Botto podcast studio. So if you need legal help with any of the following: car wrecks, offshore injuries, Maritime and Jones Act, 18-wheeler collisions, hurricane and storm claims, you better call Botto at 504-323-7777 or 985-303-7777 for your free consultation and case review. And we are also sponsored by Hardhide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey. That is an 86 proof blend of aged wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries. It is not for the thin-skinned. Look for it in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants. And we are sponsored by Ideal Market, home of the freshest produce in the city. They do great things in the community. They have the largest variety of Hispanic food and international foods you will find in the state, a hot deli that surpasses many restaurants in qualities, and a customer care service center that is unrivaled by anyone. So if you need to cash a check, wire money, or do anything else, make sure you go and check them out and get a hot plate on your way out. And while you're out and about, check out Firehouse Subs, Veteran Boulevard location. Great people doing great things for the community. And let's get into the show.
OTAs begin Tuesday and will run through June. We've got our eyes on a few players and especially, too, some position groups. But what are the biggest bubble questions for who will eventually make the 53-man roster?
Well, we were talking about this topic last week as a potential topic for the show, and I already had wide receiver number 1 even before they signed James Washington. I think it's a fascinating position now. We feel pretty good about the top 3, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed. But who's 4th and 5th?
Right.
Maybe 6th making the roster is pretty fascinating. I mean, Traquan Smith, he's here every year, but he's got to fight for it. Brian Edwards, he's sort of that Michael Thomas insurance as a big guy. A.T. Perry, who they drafted, we're really excited about. James Washington, they just signed, downfield threat. Keith Kirkwood, Kirk Merritt, Kawan Baker have all been in the system. Malik Flowers, Shaq Davis, some interesting undrafted rookies. Those guys are all fighting for like 2 or 3 spots, I think.
I'm impressed with the Cam Jordan impression where you just named the whole team. Just go straight that. And we got.
Yeah. But I mean, who on that team doesn't have who on that team are you saying, well, they can't make it? Every one of those guys could make the team.
Absolutely. It's one of the better battles, I think, on the team. I went through it and I just kind of wrote down who I have as locks, and I got 34 locks on the team. 3 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 1 fullback, because Adam Prentice is probably just going to make the team because they always have a fullback. I think there's 3 wide receivers that are locked, and then it's wide open, as you said. Tight end, I think you got your top 3, and then Lucas Kroll's kind of on the bubble. Do they keep 4? Do they not? Offensive line, I think 6, 7 if you count James Hurst. There's a scenario where I would say James Hurst is a near lock, but not a lock. Maybe somebody comes up and knocks him off. Maybe this is a year Calvin Throckmorton puts it all together, but I think Throck's probably the guy that has the tough equation here to prove his way onto the team. D-line, I got 6. Linebacker, just 2. I think that's a huge position too, not for good reasons, for bad reasons, because is there a third guy worth keeping right now besides Andrew Dowell on special teams? Is Zach Bond on the team? I think there's a lot of huge questions there. Cornerback 4, safety 3. Specialist, I don't think any of the specialists are locked. None of the 3. Zach Wood is at the end of his contract. He needs a new contract. I've heard that negotiations kind of like stalled a little bit. It's not going anywhere right now, which there's no pressure on it. Gillikin has someone in competing with them. DA mentioned there's 2 kickers on the team right now that are there to be legitimate competition to Will Lutz. So that isn't just we're bringing in a guy because we got to kick 21 field goals a day and we don't want Will taking all 21. They're actually there to compete. And as we mentioned last week or on Monday, Groupie is someone that has some hype right now.
Early impressions, yeah.
So yeah, I think it is. There's 34 guys, and I think that some of the competition at a lot of these spots is going to be really tight.
So a lot of bubble positions is what I think we can all agree on. Let's take a look at what the Saints did last year when they had to make the 53-man roster cuts. Here's the groups that had the biggest numbers: Wide receiver, they kept 6. Safety, they kept 6. That's the biggest interest to me this year, is because I feel like, given that they only kept 4 guards/centers, so not 4 centers, not 4 guards, like 4 guards/center. I think safety, that 6, is going to get cut down, and those numbers are going to go over to guard and center because of all of the injuries that they continue to have. And there's some guys that still have a lot to prove. Andres Pete, Cesar Ruiz, a lot of those guys. And there's going to be, because they have something to prove, I feel like the Saints are going to feel a need to sign more players at those positions in case either 1, they get injured, or 2, they don't show up this year.
Well, I have offensive line. That was going to be the next one on my list. And here I'm going to go Cam Jordan again. But I want to hear you guys' thoughts. All right, so let's say we think the starting 5 is safe. Although, frankly, if somebody's really good, like Nick Saldivari, or if James Hurst looks good and healthy, Throckmorton looks healthy, Andres Pete could technically not be 100% safe. But assuming he is, so I have Hurst as the 6th, Saldivari is the 7th, Throckmorton is the 8th. He's been a mainstay on this roster. Landon Young now, who they've drafted and have been developing, I have 9th. Storm Norton, an experienced veteran starter that they signed in free agency, 10th. Lewis Kidd, who they like and have been developing, 11th. Mark Evans, the 2nd. They paid a ton of money to get as an undrafted free agent. I have him 12th. I mean, a lot of these guys aren't going to make the team. How about some predictions here? Who's the surprise cut out of that group?
I think before we get into that too, the decision to, and I guess it wasn't the Saints' decision, Zach Strief going and joining Sean Payton in Denver. Zach Strief was a big part of wanting to develop some of these younger guys like a Landon Young. And I think if Zach Strief were still here, those guys might stick around longer because he would go to bat for them. And hey, we've developed this guy. Let's continue to develop him, and maybe he's a starter one day. So that could play into it, right, with the new offensive line coach?
That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really interesting things that could happen here. I was just trying through my head on the surprise cut. Like, I think it's tough for Throckmorton at this point. I kind of feel like Saldivari's versatility kind of hurts him a little bit. Probably
they
keep
kept
James
talking
Hurst.
about how well he could play center too, instead of just guard.
James Hurst can play kind of everywhere too. So I think Throck's time might be up, and I hate to say it because they love him, and I know that Doug Marrone loves him. Like they think the world of him, and it would be tough not to like a guy like that can kind of do a little bit of everything. But I think he might be he's the guy that I think has the most to prove on that group without question. How many linebackers did they keep last year?
Last year they kept 5.
See, I think that's a number that might go down. And if that number goes down, maybe there's
down from 5.
If their safety depth goes up 1, I think that's maybe a way that the way they play, you can maybe move a safety into the box.
Yeah.
Abram does a lot of stuff in the box, so he's a guy that can play there. Howden does a lot of stuff in the box, so they can play him there a little bit. They like to use those 3-man fronts, 2 linebackers, and a lot of safeties on third downs. Maybe you see an uptick in that personnel. The 6 at safety, one of those is going to be JT Gray, and I think you just count him as a special teamer.
The linebacker safety, I think, to clarify for some people that don't realize, well, why do they have 5 linebackers? Why do they have 6 safeties? A lot of those guys are special teams guys. They're not particularly linebackers or safeties. They can play both roles, but a lot of these guys are going to be special teams.
Yeah, 2 of those 5 linebackers were Andrew Dowell and Zach Bond, and they're special teamers. Yeah, so I mean, some of those spots could switch a little bit. So I think ideally you do kind of keep 5 safeties. Hopefully there's 5, and that's how you go forward with it. Maybe JT Gray can be a little bit of a blend guy that does a little bit more. They liked him on defense last year, actually, and I thought he took some steps there. But it's going to be fascinating to see kind of those last couple spots at those positions. I think 6 wide receivers is heavy. I don't know that you go in with 6
a lot of times
again.
Special teams factors into that too. Like the 6th guy is sometimes a return man or something.
But do you have 6 wide receivers that you love?
All right. Well, I'm going to predict Traquan still makes the team until I see it. I'm going to believe it. I don't think Brian Edwards will be active on game days unless Michael Thomas is hurt. A.T. Perry is definitely making this team. That's 6 already.
Yeah.
And I've cut Kirkwood, James Washington. I've cut
6-rounder definitely making the team.
Yeah, I think A.T. Perry.
I don't have him a lot yet.
Fair,
I think he's got a lot to prove.
Fair 6th rounder. I was thinking of him as more than that because he was supposed to be more than that. They traded back in to get him. They were really excited to get him. I think they had like a 4th round grade on him. So I'm predicting he makes a team. But you know what? they always keep somebody that's like a red shirt, that's like inactive, healthy inactive, and that's what A.T. Perry feels like to me. So I would predict him to be a 6th receiver if he does make the team, sort of in a red shirt role.
But in Mike's defense, who are you keeping, A.T. Perry or Keith Kirkwood? I mean, look at it that way.
I'm playing
based on the roster you have. A.T. Perry is high on that list compared to just what you have, right?
It's semantics. I think just the word definitely was just like, whoa. Like,
I
would probably predict him on the team as well, but definitely.
I shouldn't have said definitely.
Yeah, I could see him getting, if he got cut in OTAs, like my head wouldn't explode. It'd be like, okay, well, he dropped a bunch of passes. They don't see the progress. It's not working out. He dropped for a reason. Something must have happened. Like, there's scenarios.
Yeah.
Like, my locks are guys where it's like, if they got cut, like, I'm sitting on my chair, like, trying to figure out, like, what to tweet because, like, I got to get my head around it. And he's definitely not one of those guys. I guess if I were to go 5, it would probably be Perry and Edwards. And
You're cutting Traquan?
I'm probably cutting Traquan. I'm probably cutting Traquan.
The thing, and look, I mean, we all know this, but just as an explainer for assuming Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed are your top 3 receivers, I think whoever the 4th, they usually only have 4 active on game days, sometimes 5, but 4 really like catching passes and stuff. The 4th guy is usually there for a good reason. He's the best blocker on the team. He's the guy in the run heavy formation. That's the thing. Like that's where I think Traquan has an advantage is he does all those other stuff besides just catching passes. But if Brian Edwards can beat him out for that type of role, if James Washington can beat him out for that type of role, that's when Traquan Smith would be in trouble. A.T. Perry doesn't take over that role from Traquan.
I don't think James Washington's going to be the blocker. Maybe. Yeah. But if Edwards can show a little, I think Traquan's in trouble quickly.
Yeah.
Before we move off this topic, I do want to get your number. So after Eric McCoy, how many guards/centers do they keep? Remember, they only kept 4 last year, which did include Eric McCoy, which still kind of blows my mind. The fact that that's been a position group that has faced so many injuries over the last several years, and they still only kept 4.
Yeah.
So how many would you keep right now?
If Saldiveri can do it, and you keep James Hurst, you get some crossover on Hurst who can play guard and tackle, and you can lower a number there. And if Saldiveri is ready, I think that's what puts Throckmorton in trouble because now he replaces him. So I think you can go an offensive lineman less if Saldiveri's good to go and he's ready. If he's not, I think you have to keep Throckmorton, and now that number inflates a little bit. But they like those guys that can kind of be swing players on the offensive line because it does allow you then to maybe, okay, we want to keep 6 wide receivers. We're going to keep this extra safety.
I will probably keep Throckmorton. I haven't done a full projected 53-man roster. I think the guys who are more in trouble, I'm looking at tackles like Landon Young. I think that is maybe the experiment that they finally give up on. Storm Norton, you know, his bio reads sort of like when James Hurst came here and we didn't pay that much attention, but he's a veteran guy who can play all over the line. But he might be more in trouble. I think they do like Throckmorton. I would love to find a way to put Lewis Kidd on this roster. They spoke so highly of him last year. It was sort of a red shirt year, but they kept him around all year last year because they wanted to. But I am gonna put a big number on the offensive line. Some years I cheat and go 8 or 9. I think I'm gonna probably end up with like 10 because of the injury question that you said. I mean, some of these guys might not be ready to go in week 1. They also have the rule where, you know, you have 8 active offensive linemen on game days now. So 9 or 10. I'm going to go heavy on the offensive line.
10 is a big number.
Yeah.
Well, so last year they kept 5 offensive tackle and 4 guards. So they had 9.
Yeah.
So
I might lean heavy. I don't know,
right.
you know, when I ultimately do it, and you have to really cut down on these guys. But
the question there is like, are you okay losing a Lewis Kidd if you don't get him to the practice squad? It's going to come down to who are we more okay with losing. I think that on some of those questions, it might be like if you have 9 guys, you're probably okay losing the 10th offensive lineman. 10 feels heavy, but we'll see. I mean, there's definitely the point I think you're making is that the talent is there to justify it, and I would agree with that.
Well, it's just the injuries. Brooke brought this up earlier. Like, since you can't rely on anyone to start more than 8 games in this whole group, I think depth is going to be something they really, really have to care about. The exact opposite. You mentioned linebacker as only 2 locks. Tight end is the other position I had on here because it's hard to get to like 4. I mean, look what they're going into OTAs with. Jawan Johnson, Foster Moreau, Taysom Hill, who is only a tight end in name only, and then Lucas Kroll and Miller Forrestal. 5. They have 5 total. That's going to change. I mean, they're gonna add to that group since the undrafted rookie they signed failed his physical. But I mean, does that put? We could probably talk about this in a later subject, but does that mean Lucas Kroll is like likely to make this team and almost a upset if he doesn't?
They kept 4 tight ends last year.
Yeah, they usually do.
And it does feel weird. I even put an asterisk. Taysom Hill is included in that 4 because we got into this earlier, just how many times does he really line up as a tight end? Is he going to be used in that role? It seems like to me, Dennis Allen has kind of hinted at using him more as a tight end, but we'll see how that all shakes out. He's going to be one of several veteran players we're going to be looking forward to seeing in training camp. Derek Carr, when and if Michael Thomas hits the field, that is still a big question mark. We'll get into that as we get closer to training camp. But which veterans are we going to be looking forward to seeing maybe make that next step, or just want to see how they integrate back in this training camp?
Yeah, I would love to see Michael Thomas. I have Jameis Winston high on my list.
Okay.
It seems like an afterthought. He's the backup now. We're not like pouring over everything he's seeing, but he was so besieged by injuries last year, and I think he's really comfortable now with his health and probably with the decision he made. I think there's a chance that he's going to look the best he's ever looked as a Saint. I mean, it's obviously not a quarterback competition, but I'm really interested to see how he treats us here, and I have a feeling he's going to look really good out there on the practice field.
I got a handful of guys.
Yeah.
I want to see Lonnie Johnson. I feel like I don't know enough about him. It's really all the newcomers. I'm not going to name every single one of them, but he's one that's at the top of it. Juwan's development is something that's huge to me. And then let's do the ideal market question of the day on this one. Like Tyron and Marcus May being together is so massive to me. Seeing how it goes,
Did you see my notes? Is that what we're getting to?
We're still on
Go
those here
ahead.
a little bit. Yeah, but kind of what would be what's the ideal outcome for those guys? Like as far as just turnover production, how they play together, do they become the identity of the defense? Like what are we expecting from them this year?
Yeah,
I think
ideal.
Marcus May missed 7 games last year. He did miss 7 games last year. So still finding that chemistry and rhythm with Tyrann Mathieu and Marcus May is going to be something I'm going to be eyeing. How many times are they on the field together in practice? Because we know a lot of the coaches, they like to mix guys in, kind of figure out who is somebody else going to come in and work better with Mathieu and better with May? That is a possibility. These guys are a little bit older. May face some injuries with the Saints. Mathieu has an injury history prior to the Saints. So there's a lot of question marks around who the safety duo will be. I think it's still at this point safe to say it's Marcus May and Tyrann Mathieu, but there's some competition there.
Well, you nailed the answer to the question. Ideal outcome is they play like they're on the field. It took them a long time to develop chemistry, and when they did, I think it was a huge turnaround for this defense. We know Marcus May could potentially miss time with suspension, but ideal is maximum number of games from those two guys. I'm not as optimistic as you about the competition there. I think there's a big drop-off if those are not the two guys on the field. And I also think we just saw them scratching the surface of their potential. I think that could be an excellent safety duo now that they know the defense, now that they know each other. I think both of them, I mean, obviously Tyrann Mathieu's made a ton of Pro Bowls. Marcus May has been a Pro Bowl caliber safety. It could be a strength of this team, but if they're battling injuries and suspensions and they're in and out of the lineup and it's only half the time they're actually playing together, I think that could turn into a big detriment for this team.
That was the biggest disappointment of last year was those two guys. And starting early in the offseason, I heard that the whole plan the whole offseason was to become more dynamic at safety, to get more playmakers there. And I think we saw it from Tyrann. I don't know that, May missed a lot of games. And as a duo, I don't think they became what they should have been. I think that if they get used to playing with each other, if there's a complete buy-in throughout the offseason with those guys kind of being a part of everything, we already know Tyrann's out there. I think that they should become that, and they should become playmakers, and there should be more turnovers, and it should make your cornerbacks better. And they should be the identity of the defense. But right now, they aren't. They got work to do to kind of get there. So the ideal outcome would be for them to just reach what they were supposed to be when they got signed last year.
And this defense, don't forget, has been pretty spoiled. You've had Malcolm Jenkins back there, Marcus Williams. So the shoes to fill were incredibly big, and I don't think we viewed it that way when they came in. We thought that, great, these are 2 veteran guys that can fill those big shoes, and it should be that they can plug in right away. But that's not the case sometimes in the NFL when you're getting into a new defense. And even Tyrann Mathieu touched on, he kind of played in a different safety role than he has in the past. I think he's going to be more comfortable in that role this year. But that did affect him, I think, a little bit, and that's why we didn't see him pop right on the field right away.
Well, and I think the big difference with those two guys from Jenkins and Williams was their interchangeability. They were really excited about how they were going to be able to play with that. And I think, now that they've grasped the defense, I think that will give more freedom and flexibility to Dennis Allen and Joe Woods and everybody to be more creative with them and to do a lot of disguising through them.
We talk about the veterans we want to see. I think we all want to kind of see how the new coaches move around. You mentioned Joe Woods. Are you expecting any differences in practice or maybe just the way that he communicates with the players?
Well, I want to see Dennis Allen's approach from the top down.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about this. This is probably the third or fourth episode we've already talked about this, but we said throughout last season, throughout September, that we thought the biggest topic of this offseason was going to be after the slow start, after the amount of like sort of mistakes and just clumsy play that we saw early in the season. Is it a tougher camp? Is it a more grueling camp? Is attendance higher? Is is there a crackdown? Is there more urgency? Like, I want to see, look, this is not just a Dennis Allen thing. This was true of the last few years of Sean Payton, and they won 4 NFC South titles when it. But over the years, camp got a little lighter, a little easier on the veterans, attendance optional, days off. But I don't think that, and last year felt like, a continuation. Oh, I forgot Sean Payton's not here anymore. I want it to feel different this year.
I am into seeing what the coaches do. Like, that stuff excites me. Like, just even at the rookie camp, just seeing how they do things a little bit different. Like, I like to watch the process and if there are new things introduced, finding out why. So I am curious to kind of see if things on the defensive side change a little bit. And I think it will. I think we're going to see some different things. When Cody Burns came in, we started seeing new drills at wide receiver. And it's just, okay, why are they doing that? How does it make them better? So it will be interesting to see all that. I want to see DA crack some heads, though. I want to see some people get punished. I want to see consequences. I want to see all that. I don't necessarily know that we need to hear that the coach threatened to send someone to Walmart to work as a greeter. Like, I'm okay with that level of intensity being gone. But some of it, I think does need to ramp up a little bit. And as you mentioned, I think my biggest criticism last year is that it felt like a summer camp, more than a training camp where these guys needed to get into shape and everything. So a little more intensity, I guess, but I just don't know if that's in DA's DNA either. So you can't.
And we might not see it. Look, if you don't hear us saying we've seen that in OTAs, the jury is still out. Training camp is where it really matters to see that more than
what
OTAs,
we'll see it is in participation. Like it's if Cam Jordan's watching every single snap, like nothing's changed. So we got to see some participation from the vets.
And we've kind of got into, who's on the fringe, where are the bubble positions, but which guys are right there that have to save their role on this team in order to make the roster? I've got a few on this list, but who has to have the biggest share?
I've got one with a big circle on it. I have 2 with circles on it. One is Lucas Kroll, who we hinted at and we talked about earlier this year. But the other one for me is Zach Bond. In some ways, I think he's one of the most fascinating guys on the roster because we've kind of crossed him off. Like, he's not really on the team. He's a special teamer. We probably have all at one time or another cut him from our 53-man roster in years past, but they didn't replace him. They let Caden Ellis go. He's the third, he's the starting Sam, and I don't even know who his competition is at Sam. This is a guy that they traded 2 third-round picks for so they could go up and get him in the draft. They had such high hopes for him. Big position switch. That takes time. But this is the year where he could either have his own Caden Ellis season or it's just not going to happen. It's the final year of his contract and they have to move on. But, man, I'm really fascinated to see if he takes that opportunity and runs with it.
I want to hear who's on your list, top of your list.
So Zach Bond actually was the top of my list. We did
Same
already,
as well.
we did
originality
already,
over here.
We did already mention Traquan Smith, and it's not that we don't think he's a bad player. He's just not a great player. He's a good wide receiver that you can plug in, and you want to talk about a guy who lays their body on the line. That's probably his biggest knock is every time he makes a good play, it's a concussion or it's an injury. Traquan, stay healthy and make those big plays, and you got a spot on the roster, in my opinion. I mean, he is somebody who has proven that he can do multiple things at wide receiver. He stays healthy. I think he stays, but he is on the fringe based on some of the untimely injuries and things like that. And just you're adding in fresher legs, new wide receivers. Outside of that, Andres Pete and Cesar Ruiz, I kind of coupled them together. If these other guys come in and beat them out, I think that's it for them. Cesar Ruiz already didn't get his fifth year option picked up. And Andres Pete, if fans could decide he was out on the roster right now, they would have decided it, 3 years ago? How many times do we get tweets about that?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So I think guard, outside of Zach Bond, I think Traquan's probably my 3, and the starting guards, I think, are going to be the most challenged.
It's funny. Like, Traquan was next on my list, and when I was preparing for this, I looked up Pete because I had the same thought on Pete. His contract's a little bit messy if you want to do that, but if they wanted him out of here, I could definitely see it as being like the surprise cut of the offseason. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. Caesar probably gets to finish the season, maybe, but if he gets replaced, you never know. But next 3 on my list, all the specialists. Those are the rest of my list. I think every single one of them's on notice. Every one of them's got to be better. I think that was a major issue last year that they underachieved in an area that should have been a strength.
I've got one more here that I had actually written down as an answer to the previous question, but I don't think it falls into somebody like, who it's make or break for them making the roster. But the cornerback battle between Alontae Taylor and Paulson Adebo is something we are going to watch every day in OTAs right away. Like Tuesday, Nick's observations that get posted an hour after practice ends. I bet, they probably won't do one-on-ones on the first day of OTAs, but everything Alontae Taylor and Paulson Adebo do will be put under the microscope. And if Alontae Taylor grabs that job like we think he will, then Paulson Adebo becomes the uncertain future guy. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Adebo looks great. He looked great in camp last year. Taylor's obviously not going anywhere, but I wonder, the guy who doesn't earn the starting outside corner job, what does that mean for him? This is a huge year for both of them to prove they're the man at that position.
Trade candidate for one of them?
Maybe no, not at that. Not after last season when we saw them plucking guys off the street and putting them into games and basically losing September because of it. You better blow me away with a trade for one of those guys, but it's not out of the question.
I like that we went big here. Pete's a big name to say. I was scared. I kept it off my list. You guys, we went big. I like it.
Name that saint. With Brooke Kirchhofer, Mike Triplett, and Nick Underhill.
New segment presented by PJ's Coffee. Name that saint. I tried to do my best announcer or game show host voice.
Off
so
camera,
bad.
we all practiced our game show music. I think Brandon won.
Were
you going Price is Right with your music?
Yeah,
Let's hear it.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Da-da-da-da.
There we go.
We thought Brandon could pump in some fake studio crowd noise. We'll see if he does that post-production.
Right. But we're going to do something a little fun at the end of the show. We're hoping to bring some stuff like this. This is courtesy of the Triplett family. Big gamers at home. So name that saint.
I'm going to play host first. So it's you two against you. I want a civilized competition here.
Well, we'll try.
I'm going to go one clue at a time. And as Brooke also mentioned this, you get one guess per clue. You can't just start rattling off names like Cam Jordan would. All right, ready? This player, they're all on the current roster, was a quarterback in high school, 21 passing touchdowns, 19 rushing touchdowns.
Quarterback in high school.
It starts hard. You're a wizard if you get on the first guess.
You know what I was going to say? This doesn't count as a guess because he's not on the team
It
anymore. I was
counts
going
as
to
a
say
guess.
No, it doesn't.
You were going to say Troutman. I was going to say Troutman.
Yes,
we're back.
All right. They're both stuck in Troutman. All right, ready? Born same hometown as Walter Payton in Mississippi.
Come on, man.
DeMario?
Not tomorrow. See, at least she's guessing people from Mississippi.
JT Gray?
No. What do you want it to be easy, Nick? All right, played for the Seahawks and the Packers last year.
How am I stumped? He's a newcomer this year?
Yeah. Played for the Seahawks and the Packers last year, which somehow we missed in the bio.
It's not Forrest. It's not
It's
not Morrisall.
3 career interceptions against Cam Newton, Matt Ryan, and Teddy Bridgewater.
Is it? Oh, I know who it is. It's
All right.
Abram.
Jonathan Abram.
Yeah.
Point to Nick. I would not have guessed that.
Yeah, he was on the Seahawks and the Packers last year. I didn't realize
He was
that.
a quarterback in high school?
Quarterback in high school.
All right.
We'll have to. Maybe he's the emergency quarterback this year.
Should have got him on Mississippi.
You said, "Come on, man," when I said Mississippi, like it was an impossible clue.
It clicked when I realized it was a defensive player. Yeah.
All right.
All right. Who's next?
That was a little
I thought you
diabolical.
were giving
I'm doing all of them.
yeah.
All right, so Nick's-
Hold on, that was diabolical going to a newcomer on the very first one.
know.
A guy that we
I'm
haven't
sorry.
even covered. We've never even
First
talked to
round
him.
pick in 2011 went to Cal.
Is that the
Works
next
for the
guess?
NFL Network. No. All right, ready? Here's another one. Oh, this is diabolical too. Ready? Has a master's degree in structural engineering.
I don't even think I can give a guess.
And he's a player on the Saints 90-man roster with a
DeMarco
master's
Jackson.
degree. No.
He just looks like the smartest guy on the team, so
All
I
right.
picked him.
What was the
Master's degree in structural engineering.
structural engineering?
They don't just give those out, Brooke.
I know.
All right, ready? Exactly 3 catches for the Saints in each of the last 2 years. Exactly 3 catches in each of the last 2 years for the Saints.
Exactly 3 catches.
In each of the last 3 years.
Adam
In each of the last 2 years. Adam Prentice. I didn't
I'm
even
getting
get.
worked over here.
I didn't even get to national champion wrestler in high school.
Yeah.
That would have okay.
You would have got it on that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Because I don't know why we were talking about that in camp last year, but we did. Anyways.
All right. Well, let's see if Brooke can
Redeem
avoid the
myself here.
clean sweep here. All right, I'm going to start with one that might be really easy, unless it just totally stumps you guys. His college team went 13-0.
Oh, that stumps me.
I don't know.
Hold on. College team went 13-0.
What year?
In his final season.
What? Yeah.
I'm
what
not going to
year?
say the year. That's giving an extra clue. I'm telling you his experience. All
Traquan
right.
Smith.
Yes. Wow, the wizard over there.
Sorry.
How on earth? Okay, that's fine. I'm the newbie around
Another
here. So it's
Traquan
okay.
Smith fact. You know what? I picked Traquan Smith. Me and Brandon were talking about it before the show. And I was like, I was going to say, even though he's been on the team for 6 years, I feel like everybody forgets about him. And then we spent 20 minutes talking about him during the show.
All right. Do you want me
I
to get,
gotta
you want me to
redeem
get mine?
myself.
You
Yeah,
want me to
let's
get
do
mine? First one. Runs a 4.3.
it. Shahid?
Alante Taylor. Wait, who was it?
It was Alante Taylor.
Point to Mike.
He is 6'2".
Traquan Smith.
Mm.
6'2". 6'2". Hold on, let me think about it for a second. It's not anybody on the defensive line because they're all taller than that.
No kidding.
There's not a whole lot of tall DBs.
6'2".
Is it a quarterback, Jameis?
It is not Jameis.
Right.
Rushed for 24 touchdowns as a high school senior.
So he's probably not a running back. That's obscure. Marcus May.
No.
You don't think it's a running back?
No, that's too obvious. That's why I said Jonathan Abram was a high school quarterback. You got to think inside the man. Look behind his eyes. It's somebody who doesn't normally rush
I know.
for. All right, Jameis would have been.
It tastes him.
Ha! Finally.
Yeah. Nice.
1 point. I'm on the
He
board.
is a running back. I was wrong.
Yeah.
He weighs 190 pounds. Listed at 190 pounds.
I feel like I went easy on you guys for mine.
I'll go
Anyways,
Marcus May again.
190?
I'm trying to like narrow down the field so then the
Yeah.
next clues are, there's a strategy
Yeah.
here.
Matthew?
Tyron.
Yeah.
I got smoked.
I'm
I'm in the
out.
right position.
Okay, at least
You
I
said
have
it was
2
harder
points.
than you nailed it. Come on.
Okay.
You know what? So me and
You got cooked.
me and Nick invented a game that we didn't realize.
So
Well,
wait,
we
3?
were looking at all their weigh-ins information one day. And we're like, which player on the team do you think weighs exactly the same as us? So we were thinking about player weights before. That's probably where.
So you're leading the board with 3, 2,
Oh,
and
wow.
1.
Mike's
All
gonna-
right,
Mike's-
it's time
Mike's
to
gonna-
redeem.
Mike's
It's time
gonna
to
cook me
redeem.
here.
Oh, I got to
Okay.
cook Nick. Yeah,
Probably the most influential in the community.
DeMario
Cam
Davis.
Jordan.
Bang. Another dub.
Has 1 year of experience in the NFL at 24 years old.
1 year of experience in the NFL at 24 years old. 1 year of experience at 24 years
I just
old.
said that just so it really messes with you.
Oh,
Kirk
man.
Merritt.
No.
24 years old, 1 year. That's not DeMarco, is it?
No.
Okay.
All right. First name is 6 letters, last name 5 letters.
Is this are we playing Hangman?
Last name has 5 letters. I'm going through the roster so quick right now.
Oh, man. Why are you so mean?
5-letter last name is going to be horrible, but I don't want to give this one up.
We're playing Wordle now? Is there an
Wordle.
R? Is there an R? All right,
Norton Storm. No.
No.
Let's go to the next. All right,
All right.
we got to keep going.
It's an
going.
interesting name.
I got nothing.
It's an interesting name.
Neffy Sewell?
No.
Oh, that was so close to being correct, except for that's 6 letters.
Well,
Oh, you're saying it's an interesting, that's an actual clue? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
it's an interesting name.
Keep going. Go rapid fire until we get this one.
He's not a king, but
Prince Emily.
Oh, okay. All right.
okay.
All right,
You guys
I'm
are
on the
gonna
board.
hate me if you thought
All
you
right, I
got
gotta
to
beat Nick right here. This is it. This is the grand
I have
finale.
a wild card.
That was
He's not
mean.
on the roster.
That was a
Wait, what do you
mean?
mean not on the
He's
roster?
not on the
Prince
roster.
Millie,
So you mean former Saint?
Former Saint. I had to throw in a
Ooh.
wild card
Okay,
for you
former
guys.
Saint is
Okay.
a
Prince
First clue.
Millie wasn't a wild card?
All right, here we
Okay.
go.
All right. This guy's no longer in the NFL, but he was last here in 2019.
That feels like 17 years ago.
It's a riddle because he played somewhere else after he left.
No longer in the NFL. Last here in 2019.
Jared Cook?
Ooh, close. No.
Close. Keep going.
Okay. He honestly, one of the like iced up guys in post game, always look fresh. If they lost, he was the easiest person to talk to. Honestly, one of the media favorites, but he wasn't like the top tier
Willie
guy.
Oh, no,
You
he's
guys are
still
getting
around.
close.
Ted Ginn?
Ted Ginn.
I lost.
Ah,
Willie Snead's still in the
Ted
NFL.
What do I get?
Ginn.
What do I
had
win?
to
Terrible.
throw-
What do I win? What do I
had to-
win? What's my
the
prize?
fact that you guessed Ted Ginn, we remember him.
I know.
Ted was
Look.
my
That's awesome.
Ted was my favorite
Look.
player ever to cover.
Without a doubt.
Ted
He
once
was
told
the-
me a story about his rookie season, and he had no idea what year he played in his rookie year. And he was naming dates that he was still in Ohio State. at
And
the
you know
time.
what? After post career, I believe he's doing a lot of things actually in the community with youth football. So just an all around good guy. But we hope you guys enjoyed this episode on NewOrleans.Football presented by PJs. We'll see you next time.